Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service. Remind us that we are not only leaders but also servants, that we are stewards of your authority, serving the common good of all. Guide us to be the leaders your people need. Help us to see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor or different to us, with the reverence all your creation deserves. And finally, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of the human person. We seek this, confident in your goodness and love. This we pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we hold good and right and true. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you. I thank you, Father David, for being with us this evening. Good evening, everyone. The first notice about filming. Please note that this meeting is being filmed for subsequent broadcast on the Council's website. Therefore, by entering the chamber and sitting anywhere except in the public gallery, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for broadcasting and or training purposes, as your images cannot be removed post-recording. If you are a member of the public and do not wish to have your image captured, you should sit in the appropriate seats in the public gallery at the rear of the chamber. If you have any queries regarding this, please speak to one of the council staff after the meeting. Do we have any apologies for absences?
Madam Mayor, Councillor.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Quilliam is unwell and sends his apologies.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? You approved the minutes of the last meeting, 12th of September 2018. Are the Agreed. I've got a few announcements to make. What do you do with those? Since we've last met, I've attended 42 events. Everything that's been listed, I've attended. I would just like to congratulate the organiser, Chris Parsley, and her team for the Remembrance Services weekend, culminating with the ringing of the bells for the Battle's Over ceremony. Very, very moving indeed, and thank her for that, and her team. And now can I ask for your phones to be put on silent, please? So we have Christmas dinner, the Mayor's Charity Christmas dinner is on Saturday the 1st of December, and that's at Wimbledon Club. There are still a few spaces remaining. Christmas Carol service, Tuesday the 18th of December. That's at the Sacred Heart Church, no charge. Collection will be taken for the church and their charities. Mince pies and mulled wine will be provided afterwards in the church lounge, where a raffle will be held. As part of participation in the London New Year's Day Parade, the organisers have provided us with concert tickets to the London International Choral Festival at Central Hall, Westminster, on Wednesday the 2nd of January, starting 7:45 p.m. Tickets can be bought from the Mayor's office and are on sale at £15 per ticket. So that's my announcements. I now have 2 awards to make. The first is... Oh, sorry, Leader, have you got any announcements? Sorry.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you for giving me this opportunity to make an announcement, and that is that we on this side of the chamber are very happy for the Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Merton, to make her own announcement, and we're very content with this, on the Mayor-elect for 2019-20. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm delighted to be able to respond and say that the nomination for the mayoralty for 2019 to 2020 will be Councillor Janice Howard.
Thank you. Congratulations to Janice. So I now have 2 awards to make. The first is to Major Nick Coke of the Rainspower Community Church, who won the Group of the Year award at the Community Sponsorship Awards in recognition of the pioneering work to resettle refugee family in Merton via the National Resettlement Scheme. As Major Coke was unable to attend the awards, it gives me great pleasure to represent Major Cope with his award. Would like to come forward?
The second award this evening is for the Eleanor Bulsey family, who won Newcomers of the Year at the Community Sponsorship Awards and have since become ambassadors for the Community Sponsorship Scheme. Would representatives of the family like to come forward?
Thank you. The next oh, so sorry about my voice. The next item is the public questions. In front of you is the list of 35 questions raised by members of the public. and answers have been provided by the appropriate cabinet member. Each questioner now has the right to ask a further supplementary question. Please make your question brief and not a statement. I will call each person's name in turn based on the order questions were received. If you would like to ask a supplementary question, please indicate to me clearly, and I will ask you to come to the seat marked Public Questions in the front of the public gallery. We will get through as many as we can in the 15 minutes allowed. Questioners and councillors, please note that your microphones will be operated for you. Please speak clearly into your microphones. Firstly, is Tom Killick present? Please come forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Leader, for your reply. May I ask, given that other councils, such as Brighton and Exeter, have passed motions banning the use of single-use plastics on their premises, what, if anything, is stopping Merton Council from doing the same?
I'd like to thank him for his follow-up. This is an issue that I know is close to many people's hearts, and the amount of waste that's generated by ourselves as consumers is unacceptable, and we do need to reduce the amount of waste that we create. And part of the reason, I think, for introducing the wheel bins is to start to tackle that and to make people much more aware of how much they use and reduce, and to encourage people to reuse their cups and their plates and cups and all those sorts of things. We are in a contract with a contractor, and therefore, at this present time, the best way of having results from the business's end is to get into discussions with them, which we have done, and we have obtained concessions. When the contract is up for renegotiation, we can take further action, but at this stage we've taken the best action that we can, and I think that anyone who wants to know how determined we are to reduce waste should take great heed of the work that we've done already to reduce that, and the work that we've done to tackle climate change, reduce emissions, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have Jeremy Woods present? Do we have Tony Burton? Philip Ling? Jeff Cooper? John Braithwaite?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask a supplementary. My question was regarding the collection of leaves at this time of year, particularly pertinent. The supplementary question I'd like to ask is regarding cycle routes. I cycled along Manor Road today, and it was particularly dangerous for cycles with the rain yesterday, and nothing has been done to collect and clear that at all. And there are many other cycle lanes and routes where similar difficulties apply, and it is very dangerous for cyclists.
I'd like to thank Mr. Braithwaite for his supplementary question as well as the first question. I will certainly look into what's happening regarding cycle routes. I know that, as has been explained in the answer, we have a 10-week period where we actually program the collection and sweeping up of leaves. But outside that, there should be a collection and sweeping and collection of leaves in areas where there's a risk of danger. So I can specifically ask the officers to look at cycle routes and what we're doing about those at the moment. As an intermittent cycler myself, I know how important it is not to have wet and slippery leaves under the tyres. So thank you for the question, and I will take that forward.
Do we have Samantha MacArthur present? Tamara Cllr, Hannah Brown, Sarah Potter, Patrick Battersby, Nicola Thompson. Thank you.
It's 7 years since the planning application referred to in my question put in advance was approved. I'm just wondering, why impose a planning condition that you either cannot or will not enforce?
Thank you. Well, we are actually enforcing is that we have issued an enforcement notice on the 11th of October 2018, giving them till the 18th of November, which is the other day, to comply or to make an appeal. It is regrettable that Network Rail have not complied with the planning application, because I think it is a breach of trust on their part that this has not happened, and I hope that they do take action to actually comply with the enforcement notice that has been issued by the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Rasmussen. Thomas Shirley. Barry Smith. Karja Dresselaar. Jill Hall. John Tippett Cooper. Ingrid Dickinson. Shipra Gupta. Siobhan Wilson. Emily Robertson. Maria Daskalaki. Eve Cohen. Daniel Weir.
Sorry, you've acknowledged Eve.
Eve, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the Cabinet member who answered my question about dog poo bins. There is a sign at the main entrance of the Civic Centre which refers to the 500 dog poo bins and a commitment to empty them regularly, and I'd like to know when this notice is going to be updated or removed along with the other out-of-date items on it.
I'd like to thank you for your supplementary question and for your initial question. I wasn't aware of the notice myself, and I'll ask that it's removed forthwith.
Thank you. Do we have Daniel Weir present? No. Maria Davidson? No. Ursula Faulkner? No. Gemma Anderson? No. Sarah Warren? No. Mark Blacker? No. Philip Whiteside? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Why at Barrow's committee meeting on the 13th of August, this is in the light of the answer to your question, which Councillor Draper has received the minutes of, when Councillor Draper said that it was inappropriate to have motorbikes in Hayden's Road Recreation Ground, and the motorbikes could be relocated to an alternative site tomorrow if the residents wanted, to allow residents to upgrade to a mugger. Are the council now going back on what Councillor Draper said?
Thank you very much indeed for your second question. And I did say that it was, in my opinion, not appropriate to have motorcycles in the middle of a recreation ground. I did not say that they could be, I could get them relocated the next day. I did say that it might be possible to enforce their removal, but that is a question that's open to legal dispute. What we have done since that point is look at alternative venues, and to date we have not found alternative venues. I certainly, given if I had a TARDIS, wouldn't have put motorcycles in that position. That was done by a previous administration, not on this side of the chamber. That's not actually relevant. The relevance is The relevance is that this is a good client of the council, use our space, and they use our space profitably, and they use their space not only profitably for themselves, but they use it for the benefit of residents in Merton, as I'm sure that everybody in the chamber will know that motorcyclists do have considerably more accidents than do motorists, and I think properly well-trained motorcyclists are very important on our streets, and what we can do to encourage proper training of motorcyclists is extremely important. So I'm loath to the idea of removing willy-nilly this company from our parks. We have been looking for an alternative venue. We haven't found one yet, as the question rightly says. Until we find one, we certainly wouldn't consider trying to move or to remove the current occupant. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Do we have Emma Madison? No. Richard Hackford-Jones? Samaya Agni Alijed? Rudy Leone?
Thanks for the opportunity for the question. With regards to recovering costs, how much in pounds, not percentage, has actually been deducted, not in negotiations, for the non-delivery of service for the 18 months that Veolia contract has been in place?
I'd like to thank Mr. Leone for his question, supplementary question, and for the telephone conversations we've had as well over the past couple of months. Those sort of figures I wouldn't have at my fingertips as a supplementary question, but I can get those answers and make sure he's furnished with them.
Thank you. We will now move to item 6, Councillors' questions to Cabinet members. I will read out each member's name in the order they appear in the supplementary agenda and invite you to ask a supplementary question. Please ensure all supplementary questions are brief and not a statement, and we will get through as many as possible in the 15 minutes allocated. So firstly, Councillor Butler.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank the Cabinet member for his reply. But does the Cabinet member believe the process that has been undertaken by the NHS has been fair and transparent?
I'd like to thank Councillor Butler for his question and for his supplementary. I have very serious concerns about the process that has been pursued by the NHS, and I feel that Council has been misled by the Clinical Commissioning Group around the work that they have committed to undertake. In my view, the data that has been relied upon to inform the scoring of the options is either incomplete or not yet available, notably around deprivation, equalities impact, travel data, and the impact on other acute hospitals like St George's. We have raised these concerns repeatedly with the CCG. We asked them to delay the scoring workshop that took place last week until that work was completed, and despite receiving numerous assurances that the work would be undertaken, they have now progressed to scoring the options, rendering any further work, in my view, redundant. So the Council will continue to make strong representations. We will be sending another letter this week from the Leader of the Council setting out our concerns around the data that has been relied upon, and we will have to take further legal advice when a formal decision is taken to consider our options at that point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Holden.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Cabinet member for his answer. There are numerous reports from across Merton, in particular my Hillside ward, that proves the Cabinet member and Council Leader are wrong on their answer. Will the Cabinet member take this opportunity to apologise for the failure of this Labour policy, and when will he finally get a grip on Veolia?
I'd like to thank Councillor Holden for his friendly supplementary question. I have found myself a number of times apologising for the situation regarding the rollout of bins. No pun intended on the rollout of wheelie bins there, sorry. The Veolia, it seems, were let down by their contractor and in turn let us down when the initial rollout of the service started at the beginning of October. There was a shortfall in the number of bins delivered, that's clear. I was saying it's not as big an issue as we thought initially, but the calls that were coming in certainly meant that when I met with their General Manager, Scott Edgell, on the 10th of October to discuss the situation, I sought assurance that they will put it right as soon as possible because there were flaws in their data system, it seems. That has largely been put right. What I do agree still needs to be worked on, and we are working on, is where there are refinements and swapping of bins and making sure that all properties get the most appropriate delivery or collection regime for their area. And for their particular properties. So we are working on it. I don't apologise. I don't feel it's a failed service. You'll see an answer to a question further down the list, which actually gives some very encouraging figures for the initial month of the new service. So I don't apologise for that. I do apologise for the shortcomings in the initial delivery and in the time it's taking to actually get bins out and boxes and food caddies, which is a considerable challenge, and we are pressing Veolia to do that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kirby.
Oh, thank you. Oh, don't have to touch the microphone. Thank you for the response. Given this is Karen Buck's Labour MP's second attempt to get this Homes Bill through Parliament, do you think that the government has any idea of the appalling conditions that many families are living in the private rented sector? Or are they too busy arguing about Brexit to be bothered about what's happening to ordinary people in our society today?
I'd like to thank Councillor Kirby for her supplementary, and she is of course right that there has been years of inaction in terms of improving standards in the private rented sector. It took the terrible events of Grenfell for action to even be considered by this government, and whilst they did reluctantly in the end because of a hung parliament allow further landlord regulation, it hasn't gone far enough. I believe that regulations and standards do need to be tougher because some of the conditions in the private rented sector are appalling, and we do need to use the powers. We do need further powers to undertake further regulation, because I know obviously Councillor Kirby in her own ward and in many other wards across the borough that conditions need to be improved, and that's why I do support a landlord registration scheme to actually tackle these issues.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cllr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Brunt, for your answer. I would note in passing the figures I quoted were the ones given to the Sustainable Communities panel. I note the figures are different. I hope we can look into that difference because it doesn't make much sense. My question is, though, that in the same period that we issued 5,000 FPNs for cigarette butts, we issued 29 FPNs for fly tipping. Is it a sensible use of resources to spend so much time on cigarette butts and so little resource on fly tipping?
I'd like to thank Councillor Cllr for his initial question and supplementary here. I will look into the discrepancy in numbers and make sure that that's clarified. When it comes to littering generally, I make no apology for the fact that resources put into fining people and giving fixed penalty notices for dropping cigarette ends, because as we all know, litter and fly tipping eventually starts from small beginnings. If there is just a little bit around, people think, what's the point, and they drop more. So when we all probably go home, and when we're going to work, we get into work or get home and we think, I wish I'd said something to someone who had dropped something in front of me. We often don't have the courage to do that as individuals, but we have officers that I'm very proud of through Kingdom out there in the streets around our borough, going up to people and saying, do you really think you should be dropping that, and giving penalty notices? So I don't apologise for that. What we do with fly tipping is that we do go through bags. We do have cameras around the place, and I think that actually I'm impressed with what goes on with fly tipping. We need to do more of it. We need to go into bag. I was going through some bags in a street that I saw today earlier, and I took a picture of something that I hope is good enough as an address and proof to get a prosecution for that particular fly tipper, and I'll be giving a witness statement for that. So I think that we do that. And what we are also doing, and you may have seen it already or heard about it already, but we picked up impounded two vehicles last week, which have been used for regular fly tipping in the borough. One of them was crushed yesterday at Willow Lane for being unroadworthy, even though it had a valid MOT issued 4 months ago. It clearly was not roadworthy 4 months ago either. So the police are involved in looking at that MOT testing station. But that person has been asked to come in. It was destroyed because it's dangerous. And it was crushed and destroyed yesterday. Another one, the owner has got 15 days. That expires next week. That vehicle will also be crushed. And they will be taken to court. Whether they turn up or not, they will be prosecuted, and we'll be making it public. So I don't... you could say that it's easier to find the people who are doing the small littering, but that leads to big littering later on. And we are coming at it from the other end as well, and looking at fly tipping and stepping up and rationing up, and we will be naming and shaming.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pearce.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank the Cabinet Member for his reply. I welcome the rollout of the 20-mile-an-hour zones and the Cabinet Member's commitment to it. However, being purely parochial, I wonder if he could tell me when they will be rolled out in my own ward in St Helier.
I'd like to thank Councillor Pearce for supplementary, and it's very good news that 2 zones have already been rolled out since May in the east of the borough, in Longthornton, Pollard's Hill, but also as well in Wimbledon village, to show there's no bias between the west and the east of the borough. We're also undertaking a further consultation for the remainder of Pollard's Hill and Longthornton ward, along with part of Figs Marsh. Over the next year, and it's subject to funding, we do hope to have further rollouts across the borough, so that by the end of this administration in 2022, the whole borough is covered by a 20-mile-per-hour zone. I hope that St Helier is in the programme for next year. It's still to be finalised, but I think it's a very welcome initiative that we are rolling this out, because we do care about road safety and the safety of pedestrians, and we also know that speed kills, and that 20 miles per hour is far safer on our roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Omer Bush, please.
I'd like to thank the Cabinet Member for their response. Labour's decision to appoint Viola has led to piles of rubbish in the borough's streets, thousands of missed collections, and has cost the taxpayer a minimum of £3.2 million. Will the Cabinet Member take this opportunity to apologise to local residents whose lives have been blighted by Labour's disastrous policy? Thank you.
Right. I'd like to thank Councillor Bush for his supplementary question as well as the original question. I think that I would dispute his costs that he's put there, and I would also refer him to the answer, just in case we don't get to it, a bit later on, which shows that in the first month of operation there was a decrease of 1,200 tonnes of general waste going to landfill. Each one of those tonnes costs us in the order of £100 to get rid of. So that's £120,000 in 1 month alone, the first month of rollout, when he's citing chaos and debris on the streets. Also, we've seen an increase of 110 tonnes of food waste in the very first month. And it's worth thinking that actually a refuse truck takes 10 tonnes. So we're talking of 120 refuse trucks full of waste, general waste that's not going to landfill or energy exchange, and we're talking of 11 trucks of food waste that is not going into landfill and is going to some sort of recycling and reuse. So I don't see that as being failure, and I don't apologise for that. What I have already apologised for is some of the glitches with the initial rollout, and I will continue to apologise for that, and it's something that I want to put right, because my name's against that as well as the council's. So I'll be working on that. But I think those point to success and a big saving for this borough, not a cost.
Thank you. Councillor McGrath.
I'd like to thank the Cabinet member for the response, but I do think there's a certain amount of confusion here. Everybody agrees that people who don't pick up dog poo should be fined. The question is whether somebody should be fined for not having a poo bag in the company of a dog. Now, we are told that this is because somebody might use not having a poo bag as an excuse, but that is very clearly excluded in item B. If there is a problem, if we find in due course there is a problem of persistent offenders, then I think that is the time to introduce such an order rather than doing it now when we don't know whether there's a problem.
Yes. I should say, I'm deferring the answer to that supplementary question to my colleague, Councillor Draper.
Madam Mayor, I'm answering this question primarily because the PSPO refers principally to parks and open spaces. Thank you very much indeed for your supplementary question, and thank you, of course, for the initial question as well. Yeah, we've talked about this before. The fining somebody for not having a poo bag rather than a feces bag, let's call it by its real name, rather than for the actual act of allowing a dog to foul a park. You think about it, you go out with your dog might not foul the park. It's entirely possible. You can also get into a car without insurance and drive a car around and not kill anybody and not bump into anybody. But if you get caught doing that, you get fined, prosecuted for not having a driving licence. This, it's not a reductio ad absurdum, it's the same sort of principle. If you go out without having something to pick up after the dog, then you're expecting not to pick up for the dog. It's worth fining purely on that basis. I'll make no apology for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Akagina.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank the Cabinet member for his response, and also I'd like to say the figures you gave in my response sounds very impressive, but for the benefit of everyone in the chamber, can the Cabinet member please suggest a way of envisaging what 384 tonnes of food waste looks like?
I'd like to thank you for the supplementary question there. My side would be relieved that I tried to weave most of that answer into the previous question because they know that I can talk a lot. But 384 tonnes is about 38 truckloads, refuse truckloads of waste.
Councillor, can I just mention that we've just got 1 minute left, so if you could be as brief as possible with your questions and answers. So, Councillor Simpson, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you, and I thank the Cabinet member for his response. But will he tell us which organisation is principally responsible for the data failure? Is it Merton or is it Veolia? Because let's be clear, Veolia has repeatedly failed to adequately serve residents of all types of property. And so I'd like to think that he will apologise again for the distress residents have suffered.
I'd like to thank Councillor Simpson for his question and supplementary question. I am working with officers to try and resolve the situation regarding certain blocks of flats, where it seems to be a communication issue between ourselves and Veolia, but certainly in terms of the practice there was before and under the new collection regime. We will find a solution to this. We will resolve it. So I apologise for the time it's taken to do that, but we will get it resolved. Inevitably, there were going to be teething problems in the rollout of this, and I think that the very fact that the call centre has gone back to regular volumes of calls after only 6 weeks, when you compare that in Sutton, 18 months after the rollout of their new refuge service, they still had long waits. But we are down to, and there's an answer that will come out on Friday to another question about call volumes, but broadly speaking, 50% of calls are answered within 30 seconds, and we're down to the levels we were before the rollout.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The answer that the Cabinet member has given mentions hidden cameras and use of CCTV in fly tipping hotspots. Do you think we have enough resources for CCTV and hidden cameras to deal with the fly tipping problem, and could we be getting any more?
I will be as brief as I can, because I think that minute is probably up already, but it's the last question. I would always welcome more resources in the area of enforcement of fly tipping, but what it comes down to in the end is the diligence of the officers who go out on our behalf, going through bags, identifying, yes, some camera work, but a lot of it comes from actually finding proof in the bags or on debris to find out where it came from, and prosecuting, and of course witnessing ourselves when we see it as councillors.
Councillor. We are now on item 7, the strategic theme of children and young people, with a focus on bridging the gap. We will begin with the councillor's strategic theme questions, and I will follow the same procedure as with the previous item. Councillor Stringer, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the response, which also mentions school super zones. And I wondered if we could hear a bit more about those, and if they will help address some of the air quality concerns that me and many residents have been raising about air quality across the borough that affects our schools.
I'd like to thank Councillor Eleanor Stringer for her supplementary question. As a council, we are looking at having car-free zones outside certain schools where cars are barred during the start of the day and the end of the day. This is something that has been brought in terms of many boroughs already, and it's a way of actually reducing air pollution, but also as well emissions outside schools. I think it's a very welcome initiative. It's worked very successfully in many councils like Camden, Islington and Croydon. But of course, in terms of any scheme, would be subject to full consultation. But it shows that this administration takes this issue extremely seriously, and obviously I hope to work to introduce these schemes over the next year. It's also as well excellent that we have received funding for these projects from Transport for London, and that we have a mayor who is committed to working with the authorities and actually providing funding for these initiatives and schemes to actually take place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ormrod.
Yes. Thank you for the response to my question. In 2016, the End Child Poverty Report said that almost a quarter of this borough's children lived in poverty. Accreditation by councils is proven to have a knock-on effect, with local organisations following suit. To date, Merton has 9. Therefore, when will the council speak to the Living Wage Foundation in order to start talks to get the necessary accreditation?
I'd like to thank her for her question and her supplementary. The conditions of staff who work for the council are very important to us, and that's one of the reasons why we pay the living wage in Merton. It's also why the most recent contracts that we've signed also pay the living wage. But at the heart of this, there is a problem that we need to recognise, and that quite seriously is that the funding that is available from the government for councils to provide their services is totally inadequate. After years of austerity, unfortunately, councils are put under pressure to make a decision between paying staff and providing services, and that is not acceptable. If you want all councils to be paid up and signed up to the living wage campaign, then the government has a responsibility to ensure that councils are funded properly. If that does not happen, we will all be faced with a choice between paying people and providing services, and that is not where any of us want to be. So I would ask her to go back to her colleagues and speak to the government and change things, because council funding is at breaking point and it needs to stop.
Thank you. Councillor Bakari.
I'd like to thank the Cabinet Member for her reply. The Little League parents and people involved with it have talked to me regularly about what's going on at the moment. Yes, they had to accept it because they didn't have a choice but to accept the charge. You call it reasonable, and if it is reasonable, £10, then the council should be able to not charge these parents. Or at least come up with a compromise. Exclude the children who are free school meals, for example. At least that would then be a way of us bridging that gap.
Yeah.
If it's all right, I'll answer this question, because it is Madam Mayor, a tiny bit deja vu. It's repeating what happened at the last council meeting and the one before that. We have increased these charges. I'm not going to rehearse what the reasons for all that at this moment in time. We are charging in exactly the same way as the London Borough of Sutton, for instance, has been charging for many, many years. And I do not believe, if I did, I'd say so, I do not believe that the London Borough of Sutton is causing unnecessary hardship to its children by doing that same charging of the Little League that we have now decided to do. I think any idea of assessing children on a poverty level is, apart from being in itself expensive, would be, I think it would be as divisive a policy as you could possibly imagine, quite honestly. And I would resist that in every way I possibly could. Thank you very much.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I also thank the Cabinet Member for her response. May I also ask, what are the Council doing to ensure positive outcomes for those children that are excluded?
I want to thank Councillor Pritchard for his original question and his supplementary. Firstly, to say that we want all of our children to be in school and not excluded, so exclusion happened as a last result. But I was fortunate to visit the Pupils Referral Unit just a few weeks ago, and this is where children are, attend classes when they are excluded from the main school. And I was able to have a tour of that facility to see how they are supported and to have courses, and hopefully some of them can be returned to normal schools. But failing that, there is a facility there for them to have the education that they are not getting in the mainstream school. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lateef.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the Cabinet Member for her detailed response. The NHS is clearly not ensuring that enough children are being immunised in this borough. This will harm children in the east of the borough in particular. What is the Cabinet Member doing to bridge this health gap?
It's actually me, so it was he, not her. But I thank him for his question and for his supplementary. I think he's right that it does need to be improved. The figures need to go up. And the original answer outlined a number of actions that we are taking with health partners, including NHS England and Merton CCG, and that will continue to happen through the Health and Wellbeing Board and other partnership working.
Thank you. Councillor Cowper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Given the emphasis of this council meeting's
strategic theme. Can the Cabinet member please explain how these activities work towards bridging the gap?
Thank you very much indeed for your question and for your supplementary question, Councillor. I'm really excited about this one. It's really exciting that we have a divide that we know about in our borough, but what we have is an amazingly exciting project in the eastern part of the borough, which involves children in all kinds of activities, both curricular and extracurricular. Extracurricular means that they actually have to have their parents come with them. And so people will be coming from across the borough to perform these things, archaeological digs. Can you imagine that as a kid? The wonderful thing about our children, particularly, you see it in Mitcham schools, and I'm not being anti-Wimbledon in saying this, is that they don't recognise the difference between rich and poor. They don't recognise the difference between black and white. They look to each other as friends. And I want to see through this children coming together from the east, from the west, and bringing their parents with them and bridging that gap through these activities. It's fantastic. It's fascinating. Be there. Thank you very much.
Councillor Holden.
Yeah, thank you to the Cabinet member for her response. Despite your claimed response rate, I've had schools tell me that they have to constantly chase up for action and feedback and decisions on the various EHE plans for their SEND children. This is not good for the schools or the children themselves. Will the Cabinet member apologise for this lack of communication with schools and put a plan in place to help bridge this health gap?
I want to thank Councillor Holden for his supplementary question. I think actually when you see the target of 100% that was said, that's quite ambitious, and I think that shows that we want each child to have the best education that they can have, and to have the needs, to meet their needs. And so therefore, if I think they're meeting 96.3%. So if, I don't know who you spoke to, so maybe they might be within that percentage that we are not meeting. But you can see that we have a 100% target, which means we have that ambition to make sure that we have everyone on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Christie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Cabinet member for his response. Could I ask him, Madam Mayor, what measures are being taken to ensure that the fantastic brand new leisure centre in Morden is being publicised so that it is in fact accessed by as wide and varied a group as possible, including by hard-to-reach groups?
I'd like to thank Councillor Christie for his initial question and for his follow-up question. And I have taken a leaf out of the leader's book, because I have here something that nobody else in this chamber currently has. Tomorrow's My Merton, which, as you can see, has the leisure centre on its front page and has an excellent article inside on page 6 with our handsome leader and his trusty sidekick. There you go. So, and that's going to 80,000 households throughout Merton, and that will tell them about the leisure centre. Of course, it's advertised in many other ways. It's advertised all over the net. It's advertised by word of mouth, etc., etc. And I'll tell you one thing. You see these happy kids on the front here. Those aren't the children in question. But what we did, I wish it would be my idea. What we did is we had a silent auction for the first people to swim in the pool. And I'm really pleased to say that it was a family from St Helier, my ward, a family of 3 little girls and mum and dad who were first to swim in that pool. And you can bet your boots that they're telling all their neighbours about it. So there you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Curtin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, Siobhan McDonough MP had been saying in the Times that the council had no idea how many vulnerable children were arriving at Connect House in Mitcham in Cricket Green. Why has the Cabinet Member for Children's Services not been paying full and proper attention and giving every priority to this known location of concern in Mitcham?
I thank the councillor for his supplementary question. And what I'd say to that is that it is on our radar. We are very concerned about it, and we agree it's unacceptable that so many vulnerable children are placed in a Connect house. We're not ignoring the issue. For example, it comes up at our Violence Against Women and Girls board. We also considered the numbers of vulnerable children there when we are told about them if they meet the thresholds. Unfortunately, if they don't meet the thresholds, then occasionally we're not aware of them. That's not acceptable. We're striving to do more, and I'm due to visit on the 30th of November with a specialist health visitor. So I'll keep an eye out. I'll make sure that I'm aware fully of the issues and continue to strive to do the best for those vulnerable people.
Thank you. And the final question for Councillor Ottawa, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a supplementary. I'd like to thank the Cabinet Member for her response. But can the Cabinet Member please explain what else our children's centres do to support the health and well-being of the borough's children?
I will thank the councillor for her supplementary question. I think if I were to answer that fully, I would be here for an age. But what I might talk about instead is some of the pioneering things we're doing within the children's centres. For example, as well as the Healthy Early Years London, we're also hosting health visitors there, which means that we have increased referrals to health visitors and from health visitors, picking up on some of the other schemes that we do. We're making sure that children have the building blocks for the best start in life.
Right. Please note that the remaining member questions and answers will be circulated after the meeting in line with the constitutional requirements, and I thank you all for being as precise as you possibly could, and we're right on time, I think. So I thank you for that. So now we move on to 7B, Strategic Theme, Main Report. We are now going to deal, I am going to invite the Cabinet Member to present and then seek a seconder. I will then invite any members that wish to speak on the main report to do so. After that, we will take the motions, vote on them. Finally, we will then vote on the main report. Councillor Braund, please present the Strategic Theme Report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For those of you on Twitter, you might have noticed yesterday was our day. It's a day to reflect on the role that local authorities play in people's lives and an opportunity to highlight the work of our teams that often fly under the radar. It was also World Children's Day and the anniversary of the UN Convention on Rights of the Child, where we celebrated the progress made for children and pledged to continue to work for a better future for all children. Reflecting on those two things, it's clear that Merton, in our children's services, we're lucky to have a team that is so committed to working with the children and young residents and families in our borough. From our early years team, those in children's centres are foster carers and adopters who make sure that they get the best start in life. Our social workers, youth workers and CANS teams that support them to be the best that they can be. Our youth participation teams that make sure children and young people have a strong voice that's heard across the council. Our schools going above and beyond to meet demand, deliver a good education and provide holistic support to pupils. And not to forget our voluntary groups who bring a whole rainbow of support and opportunity to the children and young people of Merton. As you look through the report, you can see the evidence of their dedication. Our Ofsted rating is good with outstanding features, and now all 4 Ofsted recommendations have been delivered. We're expecting our Key Stage 2 progress scores to remain strong, and our Key Stage 4 grades to be well above the national average. We're extending Cricket Green to provide high-quality education for our children with complex needs closer to home. And 11 of our care leavers went to university in September. But we are not complacent. Whilst it's clear that we all want to make sure that our children and young people are given the opportunities that they need to be happy and healthy, a recent Child Poverty Action Group report has shown that 11,000 children in Merton are living in poverty. And that is unacceptable. We also know that there isn't an equality of opportunity across the borough. Now, the last Labour government built in Britain where children could take opportunity for granted. But the reality of 8 years of austerity is that children are missing out on the things that they should be able to take for granted. Warm clothes, school trips, having friends over for tea. They do less well at school and earn less as adults. They feel like they have less fulfilling lives. Now, very few parents willfully neglect their children. Their circumstances drive it. And despite the comments made by the Conservative Minister of Children's Services that universal credit will lift children out of poverty by getting their parents back into work, 2/3 of children living in poverty live in a household where at least one parent is working. Together with child poverty, the toxic trio of parental mental ill health, problematic substance use and domestic abuse drive a significant demand in pressures in children's social care. At the same time, we have increasing statutory duties, including reforms to send where the number of children needing our support and presenting with very complex needs is rocketing, and our duty to support care leavers has extended until they're 25. Now, we welcome the opportunity to work with more of our residents, but the funding received to meet these new responsibilities and increasing demand is inadequate. Now, that being said, after years without any mention of children's services in successive budgets, we finally saw some acknowledgement in the last. 84 million over 5 years for only 20 local authorities may not be the long-term funding solution children's services across England desperately need, but hearing the Chancellor announce new money specifically for children's social care is at least a small step in the right direction. Similarly, whilst £410 million for adult social care is grossly inadequate, these problems are not unique to Merton, nor is it a political issue. Every council of every persuasion is struggling with this. So I'll end on this, if I may. I've set out the context in which our children's services do their brilliant work, but we're all corporate parents. We have a responsibility to the children of our young borough to be their caring and ambitious parents, and with that, I move this report. Thank you.
This has been seconded by Councillor Irons, and this is Councillor Irons' maiden speech.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the residents of Ravensbury for affording me the honour of serving and representing them. I'd like to thank my predecessor, Philip Jones, for his unwavering commitment to both Ravensbury and the wider borough, and also for the best homemade jam this side of the bake-off tent. Madam Mayor, as a person who started well, is living well, and depending on how many sleepless nights my 3-year-old forces upon me, hopes to age well, I'm proud to say that I've done and am doing all these things in the east of the borough. And as such, I welcome this council's continued commitment to bridging the gap between our Merton of two halves. Because, Madam Mayor, although the gap is narrowing, and it is important that we continue to acknowledge the stark differences in the life chances between children to the east and those to the west. It is important for us to tackle the injustice of this gap, and it is important for us to realise that nobody benefits from it. As a child of Mitcham, I can tell you that this gap isn't just about data. It's about how you grow up to see the world and how you think the world sees you. It's when the Nelson Medical Centre gets built before the Wilson. It's getting on the 200 bus in one world and at the end of the route, getting off in another. It's when, once a year, the world has a big old tennis party on your doorstep and you're not invited. It doesn't belong to you. It happened in someone else's Merton. But Madam Mayor, there is another side to this gap, and much that the council can learn from the east, if we don't just focus on what we lack, but take the time to notice what we have. And what we have is a community that is vibrant, inventive, and full of talent. It's a community that cares for each other and is ambitious for the future of its children. You need only look at all the after-school study groups in the East to understand that parents here know their children are capable of so much, how hard they are prepared to work, and that nothing should be allowed to stand in the way of these children reaching their full potential. So we in this council need to match that ambition, be just as hardworking and just as hopeful as we strive to provide equality of opportunity for all children growing up in Merton. Madam Mayor, that's why I ask all councillors here tonight, regardless of party, to do one thing. When you go about your work, whether it's in scrutiny panel, task group or residents meeting, please ask yourselves, What am I doing to bridge this gap? Because none of us know how long we will have the privilege of representing and serving our communities as we do. So let us make sure that on our watch, in Merton at least, we build bridges, not walls. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second this report.
I have the following listed to speak. Councillor Bailey, maiden speech also.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm really pleased to have the opportunity today to talk about this because it's something which is really close to my heart. We often talk in this chamber about bridging the gap between the East and the West. However, when we received the report recently from the Child Poverty Action Group, I was saddened but not at all surprised to see evidence that in my ward of West Barnes, a fifth of children are living in relative poverty. And West Barnes is generally seen as one of the more privileged wards in the borough. This shows to me that there's rather more nuance to bridging the gap than the report suggests. When this theme was chosen, I was really looking forward to reading and learning how we in Merton are leading the way in supporting children. I'm sure everybody agrees that the early years of a child's life can help form so much for them. So whatever opportunities they have, it all starts there. It's why it's so important. Having read the report really intently, one thing that really piqued my interest were the two sentences under the heading of knife crime. The point was made how important an issue knife crime is and how seriously the council are taking it. There was a document taken to my committee, the committee that I sit on, the JCC with ethnic minority organisations, that was taken in September with a plan to tackle knife crime. And I'm really glad that it came to my committee because I'm not sure I would have heard about it otherwise. What struck me was the reactionary nature of this plan. There was a lot of focus on policing and dealing with things such as found weapons rather than solving the root cause. Merton is a safe place. I don't want to talk down our borough, and I think you said in the report we are affected differently by things such as gang culture than other boroughs. But violent crime doesn't just affect the victim and their families. It affects entire schools, entire streets, entire communities. And with a reported 20% of knife crime in London having links back to Merton somehow, this is still far too many of our residents that have to worry about this. Violent crime doesn't respect ward boundaries. So as much as we can be proud of our record, we cannot be complacent. Just last week, there was a young boy from Sutton who was stabbed in the head. Can we ignore this and say that's not us because it's not Merton? I don't think anyone would think that. So I'd really love for the Cabinet member to tell me two things. How will the plan we saw at the JCC be delivered, and how will it be measured? Remarkably, in the report, it was noted as complete. We are a safe place, but I don't want to be too self-congratulatory on it. I'm keen to know how we can lead the way and share our best practice rather than just ticking the boxes and saying thank you next. Thank you.
Councillor Benbow, and this is also a maiden speech.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I wish to say I'm very honoured to speak for Abbey Ward, and I've pledged to work hard and have my people voices heard. On the theme on children and young people bridging the gap, I fully support this. Speaking from experiences, from having a special education need. This theme applies to improve children health, education, prepare young people to adulthood and employment. However, there are some barriers in our life. Some people are able to succeed quicker, while others take longer to achieve their goals. Therefore, we need to bridge the gap. Thanks to the Kent County Council and my loving family, they have given me support for my early childhood. I will never forget this. I have attended special schools probably because I'm special. That's why. I have proved many doubters wrong and overcame many hurdles in life. I was lucky to a degree, and the highlight of my career is working with Lloyd's of London. People were underestimate you. This happens to everyone every day, and they are quick to judge. That's the harsh reality about our life. This is normal to me. And there are far worse cases out there. Young disadvantaged children must be supported to succeed in our life. That they are our future. That is why I am pledging to support Justina Greening mobility. Believe being a good politician is to respect and listen to everyone. However, I do not respect when party put their interest before people's voices. A lot has happened in my ward. Should I mention Merton Hall? Merton Hall was taken away and demolished from us. And there was building a secondary school at High Path were, of course, a massive in terms of air quality. But living in a chaotic air is ever increasing our awareness every day. There are so many reports on air pollution. But why weren't they on the PAC agenda last week? Why has highly facts? You can actually read the tonic air, and which is very worrying, and we'll have a certain PAC on children. The way to save the relationship between the council and the people is to have accountability, transparency, and trust. I will fight for people's voices to be heard in this council. Look at this portrait, Lord Nelson. He used to live in my ward. He's a fighter too. May I point out this late North side council leader a year ago, he answered my question when I was standing in the public gallery asking about Merton Hall. And he said to me, just focus on listening to people in your ward and do not try and score points for your party. I have to tell you this. This was the best advice he ever gave me. Do you know why? Because I gained a seat from Labour. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. There are no further speakers. Councillor Braund, do you wish to use your right to reply?
I do. I'd like to thank my colleagues for 3 excellent maiden speeches. They're all valuable contributions to this council and to this debate. With regards to child poverty, I too was disgusted by the CPAG report, and I don't think it's acceptable. No ward should have, no ward is not affected by child poverty in this borough. And the other thing is, we don't want the gap to be closing, because the wards in the west are coming down rather than the wards in the east rising to them. So we have plans. The Children's Trust, the Children and Young People's Plan works for all children in our borough. And as a council, we're working with other councils across London, the Children's Commissioner, SIPFA, the LGA, all of these other bodies to make sure that we have sustainable, equitable funding so that we can have a proper service that delivers for the most vulnerable and makes sure children are the best they can be. With regards to knife crime, we are always working cross-partnership on this. It's not just an issue for the police. In children's services, we're looking at things like contextual safeguarding to make sure that children feel safe in their neighbourhoods, in their communities. Again, we're not saying that Merton is unaffected and should not listen to other boroughs. We're working in partnership with them, including with the Youth Violence Commission. In terms of air quality, we are committed to tackling air quality for all our residents in Merton, including our children. Living in London, this doesn't just affect them in their schools, but also when they're going about their day-to-day lives across the borough. This is why we have a comprehensive action plan that I know my colleagues in education and adult social care will be working with me to make sure that poor air quality is tackled both at Harris Wimbledon and for the rest of the community. And I also look forward to the debate on social mobility later. I know that the council is taking steps, but there's always more that can be done to work towards proper employment equality. So thank you for your contributions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We will now consider the first strategic theme motion. Councillor Moulton, please present this motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm indeed delighted tonight to discuss this important pledge as part of the strategic theme, which is children and the young people, with a focus on bridging the gap, because that is exactly what this motion and the social mobility pledge we hope sets out to achieve. The Harrison Centre for Social Mobility has enlisted the help of Justine Greening to drive its work forward, and a number of cross-party MPs have signed up to the Social Mobility Pledge. Wandsworth became the first London borough to adopt the pledge recently, and the Labour Council in Milton Keynes has followed suit. On Saturday, at the London Summit, I urged the leader to join us in supporting this pledge and to become the second London borough to do so. This pledge is about 3 things. It's about partnerships with schools, access to a universal and good standard of work experience, and recruitment and practices that are open and fair to all. Madam Mayor, all the young people in our borough are our assets and human capital with huge talent and skills, and every one of them needs an equal shot at life's opportunities. Different children have different abilities and our council can have an important opportunity to drive that social mobility. And I know that everyone in this chamber became a councillor to make a difference, and by agreeing to adopt this cross-party social mobility pledge, that is exactly what we can all do. Because this pledge asks us all to be involved through partnership, where we can urge schools to partner with business and provide coaching through quality careers advice, enrichment experience and mentoring to those from disadvantaged backgrounds or circumstances, and through access, where we can urge the council and businesses to provide structured work experience and apprenticeship opportunities to people from disadvantaged backgrounds across the borough, and through recruitment, where we will adopt open employee recruitment practices which promote a level playing field for people with disadvantaged backgrounds or circumstances, and again, across the borough. This, Madam Mayor, is at a time when we're increasing school places. So let us get behind all our pupils and ensure their ambition and aspirations are realised. This is also a time to increase the importance of businesses across our borough, and a chance for them to ensure that they can provide real value to us across the borough and through their support for our young people and human capital. So I urge all parties tonight and all members to support this motion and to adopt the Social Mobility Pledge. And I thank you, Madam Mayor, and move the motion.
Thank you. This has been seconded by Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to be able to support the motion proposed and to have the opportunity to deliver my maiden speech. I was feeling fine about giving my maiden speech until I realised I'd be following the fantastic maiden speech from my neighbour, Councillor Benbow here, so the pressure's on now. It was a privilege to be elected to serve Village Ward back in May, as it has been to work with residents to support them as their councillor for the past 6 and a bit months. I look forward to continuing to work with colleagues across the chamber, as well as the council's officers, to do what we can to improve the lives of Merton residents. Turning to the motion we are putting forward today, I second all of the points raised by my colleague, Councillor Moulton. In supporting the motion, we have the opportunity to put on record the Council's recognition of the need to do more to enable genuine social mobility in Merton. The importance of social mobility is something that all parties recognise. Looking back to this year's party conferences, Jeremy Corbyn, who I can assure you, Madam Mayor, I won't make a habit of quoting, backed a strong society that gives all our young people the chance to realise their potential. Vince Cable sought a society of fairness and opportunity, and the Prime Minister spoke of my own party as one that believes your success in life should not be defined by who you love, your faith, the colour of your skin, who your parents were or where you were raised, but by your talent and your hard work. I'm not aware that our colleagues in the Merton Park Independents have a party conference, but if they did, I'm sure they would have said much of the same. Because whilst we might not all agree on the means of achieving social mobility, we all clearly agree that a society where anyone can get on in life, regardless of where they are born or brought up, is the end we want to see. Yet, the social mobility study into Britain's class ceiling showed that majority of people still believe it's not what you know, it's who you know. Interestingly, over half of those surveyed in London believe a non-regional accent makes career progression easier, which could even be why, despite growing up in Rochdale, Greater Manchester, less than 10 years later, I now find myself sounding not completely out of place in a South West London council chamber. As set out in the motion, the Social Mobility Pledge is about companies and organisations showing their commitment to social mobility in partnership, access and recruitment. Some of our biggest brands and employers have signed up, recognising that creating a workplace that employs people from all backgrounds provides opportunity not only for those people supported or employed, but for the organisations that support and employ them. As with diversity of background, also comes diversity of talents and of thought. I'm sure we all want to live in a borough and a country where no young person grows up thinking anything is out of their reach, and I hope we can show this commitment tonight. But as the pledge is about actions, not just words, those of us on this side of the chamber will be holding officers and the Cabinet to account to ensure the commitments we make today can support the people of Merton long into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Another excellent maiden speech. Thank you. We have an amendment. Councillor Fraser to move.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to have been asked to move the Social Mobility Pledge. Most, if not all of us, know that education provides one of the most promising chances of upward social mobility, in a better social class and attaining higher social status. As someone who has worked hard to make the most of every opportunity afforded to me, I'm proud to represent a council that already does so much to encourage people from all backgrounds to succeed and advance through life. Through succession planning, working with schools, identifying and supporting apprenticeships. This council strives to improve the life chances of staff and our young people. But of course, we always and must never stop trying to improve, which is why we're happy to sign up to the Social Mobility and Pledge. And as just to inform you a little bit more, those of you who probably don't know me, because there are quite a few new people here, I came to this country a long time ago when it was believed that people from the West Indies were generally not able to speak English fluently. This was a generalization which I intended to disprove. With this, I entered the nursing profession, toiled upwards while others slept. I gained several qualifications and went on to be a manager, then to be a lecturer in further education and higher education. These qualifications and experiences enabled me to work with the Metropolitan Police Force for just over 10 years, and on leaving becoming a magistrate, which I still am. This is just a snapshot of my educational life, but I know education is opened many doors to me and also to the students whom I had the privilege of lecturing. Many have gone on to higher education who were told that you should just go to work. That's what you can do. But in fact, they've gone on to be doctors, physiotherapists, and above, many of those, and I can prove that. By signing up to the Social Mobility Pledge, the Council will be further committing to the already great work it does towards providing equality of opportunity, so that young people from every corner of the borough can have the same opportunities, not just for the few, but for all. I move this amendment.
The amendment is seconded by Councillor Ella Brittis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to move this, to second this amendment, which I hope the opposition will agree to. I'm minded of Sir Alan Milburn, the Social Mobility Commissioner, who had to step down because he felt the government wasn't taking the issue seriously enough. But I am also minded that a neighbouring Member of Parliament in Justin Greening is a good MP. He's on the right place with regard to Brexit. We do believe that our amendments talk about eliminating unlawful discrimination, further strengthening, building on the work, further providing, continuing to work. So it takes nothing away from Justin Greening's pledge, social mobility pledge, but adds to it as we move forward. So we're very happy to just place those amendments, slight wordings, but the pledges themselves are in essence there, and we're happy to sign up to this pledge. Thank you very much.
If there are no further speakers, Councillor Moulton, do you wish to use your right of reply?
Briefly, Madam Mayor, thank you very much, and I'm delighted to hear that that the administration and led by Councillor Brittis have pledged to sign up. Really delighted to be the second council in London to do that. And I hope many others will join us in that cross-party spirit, not least the adjoining borough of Sutton, perhaps. But at any rate, that's for another time. But thank you, and particularly to Councillor Fraser as well for her moving speech. So, and to all the maiden speeches tonight, because I think that does actually show us what depth we have from across, and indeed with social mobility here in this chamber, but also able to reach out. So very many thanks to everyone, and we shall look forward to seeing that come through Cabinet in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now call for a vote on the amendment first. So can we have a show of hands in favour? Okay. Shall we go for against? Any against? Those not voting? No. Unanimous. Thank you. I now call for a vote on the substantive motion as amended. Great. Yeah. Unanimous. We will now consider the second strategic theme motion. Councillor Cooper-Mabaya, please present this motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to put forward this motion regarding the devastating cuts to schools up and down this country. Parents, teachers, carers, and councils are striving to provide the best possible education for young people. Here in Merton, it is incredible that at this time of these government cuts, 91% of our schools are good or outstanding. I want to thank our officers for the constant support they provide for our schools. I want to also thank the head teachers, staff, and parents who provide the right environment and ensure that our young people are working to the best of their abilities. And of course, I want to applaud the young people themselves who do the hard work. Following the 2018-19 admissions closing date, analysis of the figures show that there continue to be huge interest in our schools. We have an increase of 118 in the number of first preferences in Merton schools. Crucially, the number of Merton residents selecting the traditionally popular out-of-borough schools as a first preference has dropped by 70. This indicates that more resident families want to stay in Merton for their secondary education. That is why, Madam Mayor, I'm very pleased that planning permission has been granted for our new school, Harris Academy, Wimbledon. I am aware of the challenges we face regarding poor air quality. This is a major health hazard for every modern city, and unfortunately, London is not exempt from this. So, what we are going to do is work closely with the experts to improve the air quality on the high path, not only for our young people attending Harris Wimbledon, but also for those attending Abbey Primary and the wider community on the high path. Madam Mayor, as Cabinet Member for Education, I am made aware daily of the challenges faced by schools, be it poor air quality, teacher recruitment, or lack of funding from central government. I am therefore pleased to show our solidarity with councils and schools up and down the country by calling on this Tory government to fully fund and the pay increase for teachers that is independently recommended by the school's teachers review body. And secondly, put a stop to cuts to school budgets and invest more in the education of our young people. And with that, I move the motion.
This has been seconded by Councillor Sally Kenny.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Education is about developing every individual and supporting each one to achieve his or her potential. This means each pupil achieving academically, physically, emotionally and socially, as well as feeling safe in the process. It is not about league tables. Tragically, some people judge a school on academic achievement only. It is the full-rounded development and opportunities that make a great school and provide a great education for our young people. Our children are our future. This must never be forgotten. Deprive this group and you deprive the future of our country. Madam Mayor, the amount of spending per pupil in England's schools has fallen by 8% since 2010, says an analysis by the Institute for Fiscal Studies. The study states that rising pupil numbers and costs to local authorities and sixth form funding has seen a real-term reduction in school spending. Recently, thousands of head teachers took the unprecedented action of marching on Downing Street to demand more school funding. Children as young as 5 went to Parliament to tell of the impact the lack of funding had on their education. Young teachers are leaving the profession within 5 years of qualifying due to pay and conditions. Severe school funding cuts are leaving more pupils, particularly those with special educational needs and mental health problems, at risks. Exclusions are up dramatically. There are not enough specialist teachers or counsellors to support the vulnerable children in our schools. Children are refusing to attend school for a variety of reasons, including the reason of not feeling safe. Cuts are a contributing factor to this. A growing number of schools are asking for parental contributions, which is most unfair. Parents from wealthier areas can afford to give to the school. However, a parent in a poorer catchment area does not get the financial support. Parents are asked to provide essential equipment, again penalising the more vulnerable. This smacks of privatisation by the back door, because without the funding, schools cannot buy the basic necessary materials. The quickest way for a school to save money and reduce their outgoings is by cutting staff, and this is what schools are doing. Firstly, go the teaching assistants, and secondly, teachers. This affects the more vulnerable children who need that extra time and care, which is greatly reduced when staff is cut. Working for a university, I visit a number of schools in several local authorities and see this firsthand. A teacher is away, there's not enough money to pay a supply teacher, so the class is spread around the school. The same happens with some schools employing cover staff who are keen and willing but unqualified. They are not aware of how children learn. And is this the education you want for our children? These children are our future. Creativity is going. Music, art, languages are being cut, but not in independent schools. The government has been accused of misleading the public with statistics to defend the levels of spending on education, despite the Institute of Fiscal Studies warning of a dead decline in real-term funding. This research concludes that total funding per pupil in England has been reduced when taking into account the changes in pupil numbers. Shortchange our pupils and you shortchange our future. The children are our future and deserve the very best education possible. If we deprive our children of the best education, our country will suffer, and that means you and me.
We have 2 amendments, and we will take each motion in the order in which they were submitted. Councillor Fairclough to move the first amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The movers of this motion have put forward a forceful critique of the government's education funding policy. Councillors Cooper, Marbert and Kenny have both spoken passionately about the funding crisis, but the focus of this motion, the text of this motion, is the anger over the Chancellor's budget surprise, 400 million for the little extras, which I think we all would probably agree seems a little tin-eared in phrasing. But that anger is right, and the council resisting the government's cuts has a place. But we also need to take action we can take now to make things better. Some of our colleagues ran on a platform of making life a little better, so I hope they will find it in their hearts to support us too. So ours is a simple amendment, a friendly amendment that adds some real practical action to this motion. Madam Mayor, we're just asking the Cabinet to look at setting up a fund using some of the money from developments to help schools maintain and improve school buildings. You'll see it on page 11 of your supplementary agenda. It's a really simple idea to make a big difference. Over summer, I was asked by Dundonald Primary to help them with some problems they were having over repairs and maintenance. Many of you will know it's a great small school, a real asset to the area, rated outstanding, but the teachers and business manager are struggling with poor lighting in some classrooms, damp and cold spots, and problem toilet blocks. The reason these haven't been sorted is the funding. No more pencils, no more books. We know what the problems are, we just need the cash to sort them. As we've heard, everyone deserves the best start in life and a top quality education. Ideas like this would help teachers provide a great environment for learning. I hope you'll back the amendments and look forward to hearing the Cabinet members' ideas to develop this as a key, long-term and sustainable Merton policy. Thank you.
The amendment is being seconded by Councillor Bukhari.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been a teacher for 20 years now and taught in some of the most deprived areas of London, so I'm very passionate about this. And as well as that, the reason I'm seconding the amendment is I wanted to become a councillor after going to a Fair Funding for All Schools meeting that Stephen Allen Brittis was at. Thanks for advice for going to the ward of West Barnes. That worked out really well. Now, as a parent, I've been really passionate about the non-party political movement, the Fair Funding for All Schools movement. As parents, we in Merton have lobbied MPs, we've run stalls, we've attended marches, we've held meetings, and in fact, even a couple of weeks ago, I was very honoured to chair a meeting in my children's school. And we had speakers from the National Education Union and local head teachers speaking about the need to work together and to put children first. The Liberal Democrats have come up with some really brilliant radical education policy ideas, scrapping the league tables and the SATs, for example, because it's really important to put children first and their mental health first, as well as the teachers' mental health. So what we're proposing is a motion that is only an addition that will really help our schools. Please imagine what it's like to walk into a classroom with broken windows, doors, buildings that are falling apart, electrics that are not working, unusable toilets. Now, I've been in these situations and I've had to be in schools where teachers are telling their kids will have to go home because there's not enough heating that's safe for the children and the plumbing doesn't work. Now, if I've been in that situation, it's a reality, it's really happening. So our funding must consider the surroundings of our children too, to make it safe and welcoming. And it should be not just a little extra, it needs to be part of the deal. So please consider the opportunity to use the Community Infrastructure Levy to establish a school bonus to help maintain and improve school infrastructure, and let's keep our kids safe too. Thank you.
If there are no further speakers, Councillor Cooper-Maguire, do you wish to use your right of reply now or after the second amendment?
After, please.
After. Okay. I will now call on a vote on the first amendment. On the first amendment, yeah? Yeah, I will now call on a vote on the First Amendment. Oh, I thought you said after.
Well,
okay.
I thought you were taking the two amendments first, but if not, then I would just like to say that to Councillors Fairclough and Bukhari, they've listed a lot of things that are happening in the schools, but that's why we want the government to fund the schools fully, because using still money would just be taking money away from other good courses into school, and it will not be sustainable. And then those other courses will suffer as well. The government need to fund, to put education first, and as you said, put our children first. Its schools need to be funded fully. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now call on a vote on the First Amendment. Can I have a show of hands in favour? Against? No. Not voting? No. Five for, 52 against. The amendment falls. Councillor Curtin to move the second amendment.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'd like to touch on the two issues which have been raised as part of the motion, which are pertinent to all the discussions on the subject. First of all, school funding in Merton, and secondly, school standards, which the motion seems to suggest are being somehow undermined by government policy. First, let's deal with school funding. It's a very important issue, as I'm sure you appreciate, Madam Mayor. School funding as a budget nationally was £40 billion in 2016. That figure today is £42.4 billion. That's actually an increase of £2.5 billion a year, Madam Mayor, not the £2.5 billion, which I think they've got a bit of confusion between the addition and subtraction there, Madam Mayor. But that's the exact opposite of what it says in the motion. I think they've got the numbers wrong. I'm delighted to give them a bit of a refresher on the difference between the two. But anyway, Madam Mayor. A further £2 billion will increase the national budget between now and 2019-2020. That's going to be a great increase, Madam Mayor, for the national education budget. In terms of block funding, Madam Mayor, which I'm sure you know is the actual direct government funding that comes in to fund all the Merton schools, I think in the form of the dedicated school grants, I think it's very important to understand how that works, Madam Mayor. Block A is for general grant that funds the Merton schools directly. In 2017, it was £116 million. It increased this year, not by 1%, Madam Mayor, but by £3 million to the sum of 119. That's a very considerable increase over above inflation, Madam Mayor, for schools in Merton this year. Block D is early years, Madam Mayor. £9 million in 2015. Today, it's £16 million, Madam Mayor. That's nearly a doubling, Madam Mayor, for early years direct funding for schools in the space of just 3 years. And every councillor on that side of the chamber ought to know those numbers. I'm surprised they don't. Block C, Madam Mayor, is the high needs provision for special needs and so on. That figure was £27 million in 2016. It's increased by £5 million per year, Madam Mayor, in the last 2 years alone. That's an increase of 19% in 2 years. What a fantastic increase that is for special needs provision. Those figures are a matter of public record. I'm amazed, Madam Mayor, that the councillors on this side of the chamber haven't even understood or even read those numbers. Madam Mayor, let me turn to the teachers' pay increase. What a fantastic pay increase that was. 3.5% going to teachers' pockets across all the main pay scales for every part of a teaching profession. That's great news. It's inflation busting, and it was funded by a 1% increase initially, which was approved in the budget, which I just told you about through the Block A funding, and the rest is a brand new grant called the Teacher Support Grant, Madam Mayor, and it funds it for £500 million alone for the last 2 or 3 months of this year and all of next year. That's a fantastic increase for teachers, and I'm delighted that the Conservative government, Madam Mayor, has seen fit to give teachers such a fantastic pay rise of 3.5%, fully funded, and of course, Madam Mayor, guaranteed by the government, every penny of it, and it includes national insurance and pension contributions as well. So no one understands, Madam Mayor, why they say it's not fully funded. In terms of school standards, Madam Mayor, all this extra funding has had a great impact. How embarrassing it was in 2010 when we fallen to the bottom of the OECD tables internationally on primary school numeracy and literacy. And I'm delighted that in the last 8 years of Conservative government, our standards are so good now, Madam Mayor, that we're back in the top 10 of the OECD countries. And I'm sure the leader of this council will join me in thanking the Conservative government policy for the successes there. In the meantime, Madam Mayor, the Labour Party wishes to end the fantastic academy programme and take all our great academy schools back into the control of Labour politicians. What a disaster that would be for school standards, Madam Mayor. I'm sure you appreciate that. That's what the Labour councillors wish to do with our academies. It's a matter of public record and Labour Party policy now. Madam Mayor, thank you very much. I hope that you and the councillors will support this worthy amendment. Thank you.
The amendment is being seconded by Councillor Ormer Bush.
Madam Mayor, thank you for allowing me to second this amendment. Madam Mayor, the education policy of the last Labour government was an utter shambles that failed Britain's children. A third of all children left school without being able to read, write, or count properly. The number of children studying academic subjects halved, and thousands of children have left the education system every year without the necessary skills to succeed in employment. Madam Mayor, the Conservative Party will take no lectures from Labour on education. Since coming into office in 2010, the Conservative government has transformed the education system for better. We have delivered over 850,000 new school places. 89% of schools are good or outstanding. 1.8 million more children are in a good or outstanding school since we took over from Labour. And we have delivered record investment, with the education budget rising to £43.5 billion. We have turbocharged the free school programme, which is now delivering some of the most strongest results in the country, with many of the free schools in some of our most deprived areas. This is the free school programme that the Labour Party are shamefully seeking to destroy. Our changes have been so successful that this Labour administration are now promoting the Harris Academy in Wimbledon, in sharp contrast to their national policy, which is to hobble the academy programme and return to the second-rate system that failed our children before 2010. Madam Mayor, it is right that this council recognises the improvement in our education system under the Conservative government. Thank you.
If there are no further speakers, Councillor Cooper-Mabbia, do you wish to use your right of reply now?
Yes, Madam Mayor. When I proposed this motion, I thought it was going to be a straightforward cross-party motion that everyone will agree to, because it is cuts in school funding, which is highly publicized. We all have schools in our wards, and our children and residents attend, children attend schools. So I really don't understand any of what he is saying, because what he is saying is as if to say that there is an increase in school funding. So what he talked about, teachers, all the schools are struggling to make to maintain the school, the repairs in the schools. Parents are being asked to bring in material for their students, for their children to use, and what the figures he is quoting there is completely unrecognizable. So honestly, I've got no idea where he's getting those figures from. And so I would just like for everyone here to please be sensible and vote for the motion and ignore this amendment, because I think he thinks it's a joke, but this is our children's education. This is the future. This is about the future of our children, and I think you all just think that this is a big joke, but this is not a joke. The government need to fund schools and fund them fully. This is not a joke. Thank you very much.
I will now call for a vote on the second amendment. Can I have a show of hands in favour? Against? (17 for, 40 against). The motion is lost. Where are we now? I will now call for a vote on the substantive motion. Can I have a show of hands in favour? Against?